We're going to take in the delights of the suburb, street by street, and then get into the weeds on this property, I hope.
Yeah, I think so. And in terms of the property itself, it's 70 Oak Park Drive. So we're going to meet the agent. What are you expecting from the open? Like, what's your game plan?
It's always good to see who else is there, of course, but it's never a sort of lead indicator to me as to how much interest is in a home. But it's good to see how busy and how much buyer depth is in any particular market. I want to get a sense of the street appeal, the overall area in terms of where it sits within the suburb. I want to listen out for noise. I want to look at what the aspect is. And then when we get inside the house, I want to look at, probably the biggest thing for me is the floor plan, the layout, the flow of that, the size of the rooms, storage, quality of the fixtures and finishes, whether there's any visual issues in terms of costs. My brain just looks straight at, we talked about this before, the dollar signs, like what is high risk, what is, the perception that when we own this, we're going to have to fix this straight away, which is like upgrading blinds, paint, carpet replacements, returfing, doing those types of things as well. So
where do buyers, like when they go to an inspection, because it's quite different, right? The approach you're talking about, where do they go wrong, do you think, when they're going to their own open for inspections?
Well, I think I just gave you a very analytical list of things to look for, and I think buyers are going to be very emotional, which is the difference. Typically, the way that the buyers will fall short in terms of utilising this time to its nth degree is that they'll focus on the livability of the house. Like they can move, they visualise themselves moving into it, where they're going to sleep, where the kids might be, if it's a family house, for example. The proximity for their work, and they'll concentrate on a couple of things like that, but not necessarily focusing on the little details. And I think one of the things that gets easily dealt with by an agent, not easily dealt with by an agent, but could potentially be misled by an agent on behalf of buyers, would be hiding, those privacy issues, using furniture to make a room feel bigger than it actually is, using key furniture pieces to hide, holes in the wall or the floors or stains or things like that people aren't going to see, but they're going to inherit that when they own the property 6 weeks later. So it's just almost being like a property inspector. Looking at it through the lens of, here's my mental checklist of things that I want to go through on every property. Versus that emotional view when you go through there and go, oh wow, this is really where we want to be, or this is near mum and dad, or it's near where my friends are, or it's near my gym, or whatever it might be that's important to you from a lifestyle benefit.
Which is still important, right? To look at the lifestyle side. I still think that for buyers, that's ultimately, if they're going for a house that they own, 100% that's important to think of. But then how much of that clouds their judgment on when you're at an inspection? Like you said, you've just written an analytical list of how you scrutinise it. What's your advice to kind of like those home buyers who are buying for themselves? How do they balance both?
Well, I think they almost need to prioritise the emotional element first. So if they're looking at it online, they need to see, yes, this is in a part of the suburb that I'd like to live in. Yes, this is close to the transport links that I need or where my lifestyle is day to day. So if it meets that criteria, then it makes the shortlist for you to go and see it and then break down the qualities of that home when you're there through a more analytical lens.
We're in more of the suburban side now. What's your take?
Smaller blocks, medium density zoning, and the medium density zoning is newer, which suggests to me that there's probably quite a lot of older, larger homes, like bigger blocks, that have been carved up now with either a zoning change recently or they may have had long-term zoning for that play. There's a lot of older homes here as well, so the point that I would sort of naturally lean in towards is this going to be a high capital expenditure risk. So if you're buying an investment in here, is it going to require you replacing a roof or kitchens and bathrooms and those things earlier than, say, buying a more modern asset that's vanilla, boring, set and forget, but is going to allow you to put more money into investing rather than put more money into fixing an existing asset that you own. And a lot of the value that you spend on these houses goes unnoticed. Like if you replace the windows or you replace the roof or you fix the waterproof membrane in a bathroom, none of that necessarily equates to the house being worth any more money.
No.
It's just day-to-day maintenance that you've got to do to be able to keep a tenant there or to be able to resell it.
Yeah, that's great. And it's a great point that you make too, because I'm looking like in terms of local infrastructure, how, like you mentioned NAPLAN schools and things like that, the conveniences, how much weight do you give to amenities versus asset versus like the stats and the return?
I think it's all balanced out together, and you've got to look at supply and demand into that market. You've got to look at future supply risks like a pipeline of DA approved or building approvals that are in place locally with council, and how that's going to impact this area. Like, for example, if you've got all these residential streets, it looks good on paper that there's not going to be a huge amount of supply because this suburb's already built out.
Yeah.
But if we're overseeing the fact that there's a cow paddock out in the corner that a developer's just bought in the suburb, creating a 200 house and land package carve up, that's potentially going to, limit the capital growth here because there's going to be an oversupply of like-for-like homes. So that all comes into play with our decision making. It's looking at supply, it's looking at where the underlying demand is coming from. Are they looking for 3-bedroom houses? Are they looking for townhouse style or big family homes? Is the 4-bed or 5-beds a premium here because there's not many of them and there's strong demand? So trying to find the sweet spot of demand. As we drive through these streets, I'm looking at, are they residential mainly, or is there a mixture of commercial? Are we near any childcare centre? Is it parked out heavily? Is there new development going on?
Yeah.
So there's a whole heap of different things at play for me as well.
Fair. And we've arrived at the open. So, as mentioned, this is actually open today, so we could have other buyers here. Before we go in, what do you reckon? First impressions of the house?
Quite nice. Like, it's got a well-maintained front garden, which looks owner-occupied to me, which is often the case though when agents are selling a property and it's being openly marketed, that they'll pay for the gardens to be done and things, but it looks like it's been well kept. The paint on that garage looks good. It's got solar panels, so there's a cost there that you otherwise may have to invest yourself if you're a new owner and you wanted that. Neighbour's house looks like they've got, a fairly kind of modern architectural kind of fence there, which suggests that house is possibly renovated, maybe a young family or something lives there. There's some construction across the road, so people are spending money on this house. They're rendering an old home and doing what looks like a fairly big renovation on that house potentially. So people are investing into this location, which is a good thing. So you're going to see capital values rise as these properties resell and reset the price expectations. But I look around and I see there's opportunity, right? Like, there's older red brick houses, there's homes of different ages and architectural styles. So that always suggests to me that this area has been here for 30 to 60 years. There's opportunities here for renovate for profit. There's going to be future development like knockdowns and modern houses built here. Does that mean there's a risk of as I said, overdevelopment in terms of some of these older houses getting knocked down and built into block of 4 townhouses or something like that, which changes the density in the street? What's
your plan of attack with the agent? Any game plan that you go in with?
I've got my baseball bat in the boot, and normally I just open up with a few questions, and when I don't hear what I like, I start swinging.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, good tip.
The goal for me would be to absorb what the house has got to offer, pick up any red flags or talking points like that we need to highlight and explore further. Do a video walkthrough tour for my clients and talk them through the pros and cons of the house and give them a final sort of verdict, whether it's a thumbs up or thumbs down for me. I would usually walk a few houses down in either direction just to kind of get a bit of a feel for it. I'm looking for privacy issues through windows, looking for the possibility of developing the house further, like is there the ability to go up, is there ability to go out? Is there ability to open up a kitchen and make it an open plan living area or something where you can add value to it, so there's some future ways to manufacture equity? And noise. Just be quiet for a little while. Is there noise coming from a childcare centre? Can you hear an electricity thing humming? Is there buses going past occasionally? Is it under a flight path? Anything like that that's going to be a negative connotation.
I love it.
Before we then talk to the agent if it's a property of interest and really get into the weeds about, pinpointing where the interest is in the house, what's the highest offer they've projected, how much interest is in there today, is there any time pressure to act, all those things.
All right, I'm so keen to be a fly on the wall for this one, so ready to get into it?
Cool, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So I always want to get a feel of the lay of the land around the house, right? So I'm looking at the street. Since we've been here for a couple of minutes already, it looks like a quiet residential street, but we've seen a fair bit of car flow already. There's speed humps here as well. So that suggests that this is a bit of a, possibly a rat run, like people have been cutting through this street to get to somewhere else within the suburb, or it's a reasonably well tracked out part of the suburb. So that's a concern for me. It's just that's going to have some impact on the value versus looking at a comparable sale or a competing listing that's on a more quiet street. So these are the types of things that we need to look into. I can also see there's some really nicely renovated houses and front facades. People are spending money on these homes to make them better, but there's a lot of opportunity here still. I can still see older homes that are 40 to 60 years of age that are going to need some work at the near future, or they're potentially knockdown rebuilds, and then my concern would naturally extend to, is it going to be medium density, like is it going to be townhouses or things that are going to change the density through this street as well.
I'll wait if that person's inspecting.
Yeah.
We'll let them go through.
I'll just do my thing anyway and have a little walk around and check it out, and then I'll come in and have a look. What I'm looking for here is the neighbours and how close they are in terms of noise and privacy. So you can see here there's only about maybe a metre gap between the houses. So that can be a bit of a concern for privacy. This house looks like it's not as well maintained. So whether or not that's a tenanted house, which we'll look at in the data later to see who the neighbours are. This house looks like it's been well kept in the front garden, but I am concerned about the traffic flow. We've seen quite a lot of cars come past, as I referenced earlier. This big tree here for me as well looks like it's got some root issues that's increasing the height of this footpath here. So whether or not that's going to impact any front garden retaining wall long term, if that becomes a problem, or if council see it as a risk because it's dropping or there's some problems here and they come and cut it down, then you're going to lose that shade, you lose that privacy. And that definitely helps soften that facade as well. So that would be something that I'd want to just kind of keep an eye on. Also that telegraph pole, you'll see most of the other houses here don't have that pole here. That's a negative for me in terms of just the aesthetics here on this house. The gap between the houses on this side looks better. Our house that we're looking at opens out onto this house, which is better than opening out really close on that other property. So it'll be interesting to see if that is affected from a privacy perspective at the rear of the house because it's angled in. Always when I'm looking at a house that's on the low side of the road, I'm concerned about water flow. Usually the house stairs are stepped up. That doesn't make sense. Usually the entrance to the house, the front door, is raised. And that can sometimes protect you from the water flow that naturally comes through here, but the garages often aren't. And in this instance, there's no, sorry, I hit their open for inspection sign. There's no drainage in front of the garage. So the concern for me is that if you have 2 cars, plus you've got some storage space or boxes or anything that you want to use that area for, it becomes a little difficult if it's exposed to the elements and it could potentially get flooded. So the things that I'm looking out for are the things that I pointed to before: older homes that are potentially knockdown rebuild and risk of overdensity if there's any changes with zoning. This is a major renovation that they're doing here, which is good. So there's some gentrification coming to that suburb. What we can't see now is the traffic flow that we referenced earlier, and then that tree here and the potential root issues that may cause, and maybe the loss of that tree from council over time, and then the aesthetic negative of this telegraph pole here. But let's go through and do the video walkthrough tour. We've pointed out already about water ingress here and the risk of that. Gents, thank you for having me through.
If there's any questions.
Yeah, we'll do, thank you. Shoes off, are we okay? So into the first bedroom here, which is lovely. Nice bright outlook here to that front garden with that natural stone retaining wall. Nice big windows, good size room, built-in wardrobes, and there's a TV, and they've got a little desk space here for presentation. Bathroom's been renovated. Again, nice and light. Shower over bath is a negative, but at least it's been redone. There's a bit of storage behind there. That may be the laundry. It's not, it's just extra storage. Nice that this is nice and clean anyway, and it's been renovated already. This looks like the master bedroom, so a big bank of walk-in wardrobes. Again, nice and bright, although it lacks privacy because it looks out to the entrance, like where everyone would walk past here, which means you're likely going to have those blinds down during the day. You can't really see in from the street, but there's enough of a gap there that you couldn't walk around here naked out of the shower as you're getting dressed, which means you've got those blinds closed a lot, which is a negative for me.
There's a lot of storage here, but it's looks dated in terms of its style. Again, the bathroom's been renovated, but for a modern master bedroom to have a shower over bath here is a negative. Bathroom's been updated, but it looks like it's been fairly cheaply done. Third bedroom, there's a space for built-in wardrobes, but there's no doors. This looks like it was used maybe as a study or something previously. Nice outlook to the back of the house. It's a smaller room. You do see that neighbouring property, and this is what I referenced earlier, that it wasn't in very good condition, and you can see from there that the windows are all rotted, the fascias are done, the balcony looks like it's falling apart, the garden's unrenovated, backs onto the golf course or the park at the back, but it looks like it needs a lot of work. Here we've got excess timber and things, which is a pest risk that's going to need to be removed. And it looks like there's some sort of privacy fence here as well for a room downstairs. So that neighbouring issue that I mentioned up front before we came in has definitely impacted this house. Into the main living space, beautiful space. Big open plan kitchen, living, dining. Caesar stone bench tops, really nice kitchen. Dishwasher, all nice stainless steel appliances, gas. That issue that we spoke about at the front is relevant here. They've put some privacy against the glass so that you don't see that neighbouring house, but there's a good gap between those homes. This is a nice space to work in, a nice space to cook and eat, and a good family room. Beautiful and bright, looking over that golf course or park at the back. I would imagine it's nice and quiet out here as well. Again, that neighbouring property is high visibility from here. It is a golf course. There's someone putting there, but it does look nice and quiet at the rear here, private, very green, which is lovely. You've got a series of terraced areas in the garden. Obviously this is quite a heavy sloping block. It's a barbecue built in here. I'll come back and have a look at this stuff privately by myself, but I would be a little worried about, you know, these old timber frames, the quality of those windows in terms of weathering over the years, any work that's got to be done there to maintain those. The deck looks nice. Looks like it's in decent condition, although there is a little thing that we need to talk about there later, which will definitely come up in the building and pest report. You just want to look for these areas that are showing age, because there's a cost to rectify and possibly replacement cost, which can be very expensive. This is a nice terraced area, but for tenants with young children, it'll be a safety issue. People that are older, it'll be a safety issue. So there may end up having to be some sort of money spent here as a guardrail. An old tree stump there. I just want to check that there's a termite barrier here and that the termite and pest work has been done regularly. There's lots of big trees there as well, so there's always the risk of termite damage. I'm going to get down and have a look here. I'm just trying to find where you actually go down here. It's a bit awkward. So this is the back of the garage, which is actually just a carport, not a garage. So that is, it's a negative in terms of the overall price. It's also on a heavy slant, and it'd be very tight to fit two good sized family cars in there. So these things are areas that I would be conscious of. Nice to have this workspace though. Areas like this for me are just a bit of a tripping concern. Like it's just getting a bit old now. You can see some substantial movement and cracking in the concrete slab. All the turf's been worn away here. So this is obviously an area that either doesn't get a lot of sun or it doesn't have any good drainage. You've got movement in the garden beds, areas like this with exposed nails, which is a danger. So all these things have got to get rectified before you lease the property out. You can see that the retaining garden area there has fallen away. Some loose pavers and things here as well, which is a danger, and they'll need to be reaffixed. This is very steep now as you walk through here as well, so I don't know, even though you're paying for this land size, I don't know how much of this land is actually usable. So that's going to come into my play when I'm doing my analysis as well, in terms of how valuable or usable that land is. This would be good for, this is the golf course here, so it's nice and quiet. This would be lovely for a dog, some outside space for a pet there. It's not that usable for a child. You may be able to spend some money to further level this out and put some swings down here or some play area, but otherwise there's not really enough space to kick a ball around, and it's not quite flat. All in all though, it's a decent sized garden with a beautiful big tree there, so lots of greenery. Here's some more loose paving stones. These areas like this are just, waiting to be kicked off, they need to be repaired. This doesn't look like it's been that well designed in terms of finishing here. This is a tripping hazard. You've got to remove all these timbers because there's a pest risk. This is interesting to me. This is like a privacy screen that they've added here, obviously because they perceive that as a risk or an ugliness with the house next door. You can see cracking in the bricks here. So there's been some movement here all the way through to that frame. This doesn't look very well finished here. You've got exposed pipes. There's a lot of moisture here at the bottom of that tank. Again, that's a pest risk. So we can get into the downstairs room here if it's locked, it's open. Using this as a granny flat or guest accommodation. It's got a split system here. You can definitely feel it's cooler down here. My natural thinking is always, is there enough airflow? Is it going to be mouldy or is there a smell to it? Definitely got a different smell down here than it does upstairs. Also suggests to me that it's just been painted, which could also potentially mask previous mould or moisture level issues, which will be tested by a building and pest report. Certified instructor will find that quickly when they do a moisture reading on the walls. It's a good sized room though, like it's a good flexible space. There's some storage down here. Ensuite bathroom with a proper walk-in shower, which is always good. Low ceiling heights here. And I wonder whether these are going to be legal. I'd say this can't be used as a bedroom. So it'll be interesting to see what they're selling it as on the floor plan or in the marketing, because it's lower than 2.1 metre ceiling heights, I think. So it's not a habitable space. I'd have to check that though. Laundry is pretty basic, but nice and bright. Another storage area under here, which is a good little space. Got it as a kitchen, a automatic vac, and then there'll be some storage under the house here, which is quite handy, but I'd say due to the slope of the land is going to be damp all the time. Let's go back upstairs, which should lead us back up into the living space. You can see that privacy more that we were hidden from in the kitchen upstairs. These will look like timber floors in the photos, but they're just vinyl floors. This is the standout of the house for sure. This room is a really good space overall and been well fitted out. Yeah, it's interesting, definitely. Like I was interested to see like the slope of the block,
Yes.
and see how much that impacted it in terms of livability. It's a good sized block, but it's not that usable down in the backs. And I was concerned about obviously the water runoff in here, whether this was a proper double garage, because you could see the shape of that narrowing at the back there.
They do fit 2 proper cars in there.
Yeah.
But they've got this where they've levelled out. So he does a lot of car work himself. So he made this as flat as possible.
Yeah.
They park the main car here and he usually does a lot of work over the weekend on it.
Okay. Downstairs in that annex or whatever you call it, are you marketing that as a bedroom, or has it got the right legal ceiling heights?
Bedroom from what we've been advised.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what the ceiling height is down there?
I haven't had that measured.
Okay. I just didn't know if that was a usable space in terms of a habitable space.
Yeah.
And then, the sort of concern up here for me in the floor plan is that the master is sort of highly exposed to this traffic area. And if you're parking a car here, that's not the most aesthetically pleasing view, but also it's exposed a little bit here to the road, just in terms of getting out of the shower and you're having to have those blinds closed. I don't know if you've had much feedback around that.
I actually haven't. That's I think with that though, like anything, you can always add value, and this particular home is probably more to add value eventually, but you can bring the house up to here and be in line here.
Yep.
And that will probably
Well, solves the car park bit anyway, and you can change the entrance a little bit.
That for sure. You may lose a natural light coming in from there, but you might do a window here, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But you might do a hallway here, and that sort of takes that away, I would have thought.
The living space is awesome.
Yeah.
Elevated, private, really nice and bright. It's got a great outlook at the back there. It's really, really lovely room. And that kitchen looks pretty modern as well. Like, you don't have to touch that. It's all done nicely. Yeah. It's a bit short on privacy on this side. Well, obviously, we've got a screen downstairs, and then that neighbour's house doesn't look in great condition. Is that rented or is it own?
No, that's unoccupied.
Okay. And are they doing a renovation to that, or are they?
Not too sure. That we sold it to them a couple of years ago, and it was actually, I believe, in my worst condition.
Okay.
They're chipping away at it.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, well, it'll be a nice house once it's the work's been done to it. And then let's talk Turkey then. What's it going to rent for? What's realistic for this in terms of market value?
Probably looking around 800 a week.
Okay. I always go on the conservative side, so you think comfortably 800?
50, but yeah, around 800 I would have thought it's pretty conservative.
Okay, cool. And where does it sit price-wise? What's the best comparable you've used on this to arrive at with the vendors?
2185 to 155 is the price.
145 to 15.
So 145 to 155 is the guide. We've sold, so there's 1, 2, and 3. So this is 70, 66, 68 sold in September for 18.
Yeah.
That's a true 4-bed, 2-bath, and 2 living.
Same size land?
Same size land, more renovated
Yep.
as well, and had that second living area properly. Then we sold next door, and that was what we probably said more land value at 1.3. So deriving a fully renovated and in between.
First land value. Yeah. What's the perception of a discount to the turnkey one there in today's market conditions? Where do you see that? Is it a 200 grand discount, a 300 grand discount?
Hard to say. It's not a flat block where, you might get a wider pool of buyers. It's backing onto the park. It's got a slope. It's someone that's going to appreciate that probably more over the turnkey. But
Yeah.
if you're comparing this and that, then I would say 200K the bare minimum for sure.
So that puts us in the 1.5s. Yeah.
Which I think should be where it's at.
Yeah.
Just about finding the right buyer.
Cool. Okay. And then tell me about the situation. So is it going to go to auction? Happy to sell prior?
Right price sells it before.
Cool. So if they get the right deal and the right structure, have they bought already? They need a particular settlement or anything to match that up?
Well, yeah, they're looking somewhere around sort of 60 to 90 days.
Okay. And it's owner occupied now?
It is.
Okay, cool. They've done a great job presenting it if that's the case. Yeah.
So they're honestly pride and joy.
Yeah.
Just looking at the downside. So
Nice. Okay, cool.
reluctant to sell it and held on to it as long as possible. But yeah,
And have you how long have you been marketing it for?
now 4 weeks.
Have you had any offers already?
We haven't had any offers just.
Okay. And what do you think buys it today?
I reckon a good conversation will start topping the range.
So 155.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, give us an offer to work with and then we'll come back to you.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll go and do our research on it and have a bit of a play around with the numbers. Have you got a building and pest report already done?
No.
Okay. All right. So that will be something that I think we'll pull up a few things. Like we saw quite a lot of little maintenance items, possibly nothing that's structural or major, but
Yeah. It's all concrete stumps as well downstairs.
okay. Yeah. Any major work that they've had to undertake in the last few years or anything that's there that they're aware of that needs to be fixed?
Nothing that we've been made aware of. They've done the renovations as you've seen.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Okay, cool. And then next door's across the road's obviously doing a reno.
Yeah.
What's the zoning changes around here? Are these sort of knockdowns, 1 into 3 townhouse packs or anything, or is it just like for like?
It's literally, most of them now you'll see are pretty much keeping the existing and doing the renovation or a huge extension to it.
Yep.
There's very little, if any, as you'll drive through that have actually done the full new home on it. And that's because of the slope on it on both sides, incline and decline.
Yeah.
It's just too costly to do. So there's a bunch of townhouses, I think like 3 or 4 down that way. They're the only ones on this block.
Okay, cool. And who's your buyer for this? Is it an investor? Is it an owner-occupier? Is it young families or is it older buyers, generally speaking?
I think both. If it's an investor, you're buying into a suburb which is on the up. If you're looking at the surrounds, they're all median house prices of 1.7 plus.
Yep.
So if you're buying a family home, 4 beds plus at 1.5, it's good value. You can rent it out pretty well, so there's good yield. For a family though, as well, great location. You've got the park behind you, the golf course behind you, Chatston Shopping Centre around the corner. It's pretty convenient.
Yeah, nice. Cool. All right, well, we'll go and do some homework on it and come back if it's of interest to the client.
Awesome.
Nice one.
Thanks so much.
Good to meet you. Thanks for your time. Cheers.
All right.
Because I think you'd want to be on a traditional flat block of land, which is just easier to work with, even though that had some nice characteristics that has. The house is of a certain age where it's just starting to get into that point of which you're going to spend money on it. And there's a lot of money there to spend that's not necessarily going to add a huge amount of value to the home. The aging of the timber window frames, for example. I got some issues around potential moisture and water like that. There's a little bit of movement and cracking at the rear of the house and the brickwork. There's a lot of movement. So there's definitely some maintenance items. The lower side of the road is a concern for me, but going onto the golf course at the back there is a really nice owner-occupier kind of appeal. I just don't think tenants are going to pay for that.